Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. On this episode, I'm joined by Alexander Jones, vocalist of the band UNDEATH. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! What's going on, Caffeinated crew? Today I'm joined by Alex Jones. I'm going to make a joke that has been made so many times, but not the one that we all have prominent feelings about. This is the Alex Jones that sings in the death metal band UNDEATH. Alex, how are you doing this morning?
Not the Alex Jones that you all know and love, the other ones. I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Great. The one from the meme where he's like looking back in the courthouse. That's one of my favorites.
I mean, pretty much every time an interview with me gets published and they use Alex instead of Alexander, it's like a who's who of all the best Alex Jones gifts out there. So I've seen them all at this point.
Yeah, I guess it would be important to be like, do you want to go by Alexander or do you want to go by Alex? I guess at this point that has been tossed out the window. So
it doesn't make a difference at all. Believe me. It's fine. I don't care.
I just didn't want to, beat a dead horse. That's more the vibe I was trying to take with it. I feel like that horse has been beaten on every other podcast. So,
I mean, you just can't beat the classics.
Well, let's start things off right. Are you drinking some coffee on your end?
Dude, I'm gonna be honest with you. No, I'm not. And typically I would be, but this is kind of like. I mean, on the weekends, on the weekdays, I try to stay disciplined and wake up at like 8 or 9. But today I rolled out of bed at like 10:15, 10:20, and I just didn't have time to brew coffee. So I'm drinking a Polar brand cranberry lime seltzer. Not caffeinated, but maybe if the fine people at Polar want to shoot me a sponsorship or an endorsement for plugging them, that would be greatly appreciated. But I do love coffee, and I would probably make some as soon as it's over.
Oh man, I'm so sorry to have taken away from your coffee making time.
I mean, it was on me. I could have easily woken up at 8 and made some coffee, but I chose those extra 2 hours of sleep instead. So it's my own hubris.
Polar is that a regional brand?
No, it's like it's all over the country, all over the U.S. I mean, it's just one of like the premier like carbonated seltzer drinks that you can get. I mean, it's equivalent to a LaCroix. I mean, you've got that in Montreal. Yeah,
we got LaCroix.
LaCroix. It's similar to LaCroix. LaCroix. But yeah, it's the same thing. It's just cheap flavored seltzer.
It took a long time for the U.S. and maybe North America in general for us to get our sensibility straight to start accepting the mineral water, because I'm sure for a long time it was like, oh no, that's for European sissies, like that kind of I want my Folgers and I want my dirty tap water. That's like how I guess Americans have been for a while.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a good point, and just kind of like piggybacking off of that. I mean, I don't know if you've talked about this on the podcast before, but I was kind of thinking about it this morning. Do you when I was a kid growing up, coffee was like an old man thing, It was like my perception of coffee was just that of what my parents drank, which was, Maxwell House, Folgers, instant coffee crystals, and commercials that you would see for coffee were like, middle-aged 40, 50-year-old people in bathrobes waking up and making Folgers. And now it's like the complete opposite. Coffee is like a young person's game. And I think that's really interesting. It's like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I'm curious.
Yeah. Like my grandparents are the ones, like my parents didn't even drink coffee until Starbucks was getting big everywhere. And my grandparents used to make Nescafe bold crystals all the time. So every once in a while, like I'd get a sip from my grandparents. But yeah, that was like, it wasn't until maybe 2012, 2011 that I started seeing like young people like when I was in college, like we were drinking like at like a hipster, I guess, quote unquote, coffee shop where they were making like latte art and shit. That was like the first time I ever saw that.
Yeah. I remember when I was in college and like all of these kind of boutique third wave coffee shops started opening around Rochester.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, yeah, I mean, it was the same thing. That was the first time I never heard of latte art. That was the first time I'd ever heard of like latte art competitions.
Oh yeah,
Like,
like a throwdown.
right. And, I always thought that, basically anything, I mean, this is my own ignorance, obviously, but I was under the assumption that anything that wasn't just like black coffee or like a latte with some Starbucks shit, like a cappuccino or a cortado or anything that like sounded vaguely Italian. I was like, that's Starbucks. That's like their territory. Like they invented
Right.
all these things. And then, you start going to nicer coffee shops and you learn, oh no, these are very old coffee concoctions that have,
Yeah.
predated Starbucks by a very long time. And Starbucks actually is this massive evil empire that came in and kind of perverted everything.
Appropriated coffee culture to their own capitalist agenda.
Right, and manipulated it to this like unrecognizable Frankenstein monster of bastardized coffee culture. And that was a very eye-opening experience, like discovering that. And not to go on a tangent, but I kind of got introduced to a lot of that stuff from the guitarist in my last band. His name's Joe. Shout out to Joe. He was kind of the guy that turned me on to coffee as like an experience, as a thing that you go out and seek. And I kind of thought he was full of shit for a minute, just because we would go on tour and he would seek out coffee shops in different cities. And, I didn't have anything to do because I didn't know anybody in fucking Cincinnati, Ohio, but he knew a coffee shop there. And we would go and he would try like 6 different things. And he would just very openly be like, this one is terrible, this one is great, like this one's just fine. And I was like, well, you actually have like a palate for this. You are able to discern nuances in the coffee that I couldn't even dream of detecting. But I thought that was really cool. And that definitely, just watching him have such a respect for it helped me gain a lot of like respect and admiration for coffee as like an experience.
So let's move on to what your coffee order is. Do you have one when you go to a shop? It's your like
Yeah,
your tester.
I'm pretty boring. I mean, like I don't have like a really discerning palate. I feel like as far as coffee goes, I mean, I can tell generally when it's good versus bad coffee. Like I feel like that's pretty easy, um, but I'm sure people who are much more knowledgeable about coffee than I would say like, well, actually, that's a much more complicated thing to guess. But um, my order, I mean, I'm generally like a cold brew year round kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
I just love iced coffee. I love cold brew. If I'm like stopping into a place and I'm not really planning on spending much time and I just want to get coffee and go on and do my next thing, it's cold brew pretty much 100% of the time. If they have it available. If I'm overseas and I'm fucked, then it's just
Oh
like,
yeah, they don't cold brew over there.
no, I'm at the mercy of whatever they got, what long iced black or whatever bastardized iced coffee thing they have. Just cubed ice poured into a cup of hot coffee.
There's a crew that like some of my friends and then our extended network of people that is if you go to a coffee shop and they offer you instead of drip coffee or cold brew, it's an Americano or iced Americano, boycotted, blacklisted. You're not a good coffee shop. This is not true, but this is like our dramatic, pretentious coffee brain working. So I understand where you're coming from because it's not, it's a shared like, don't give me an iced Americano. That's just watered down espresso.
It's horrible. I know. And yeah, it's like if I'm not doing cold brew or iced coffee, uh, like I said, I'm pretty boring. So I'll get a drip coffee, just like a black drip coffee. I don't need room for cream. That's just I like. I'm a size queen, dude. I like holding like a big ass cup of mud. So that's my order. And again, it's hard when you're overseas, and not only do they not do iced coffee or cold brew or anything like that, every coffee that you order is like this big.
Yeah, it's yay
So,
high.
which, hey, you know what? I respect it, but I I'm the kind of guy that I just like having a fucking cup of mud, brother, and a big ass large 16-ounce drip coffee generally does the trick. If I'm gonna be fancy, generally like I'll do a cortado.
That's
What,
it.
like,
That's all you need.
that's all you need.
That's
I
it.
do a cortado. If I'm feeling like really sassy about it, I'll just get it with whole milk. Generally, I'll do it with oat milk.
Man, you're on Team Oat Gang, which is sick because that's like been the revolving theme. I'll tell you what I'm drinking today. It's a bit bougie. I'll be honest with you. But I found it in a coffee shop here, and we never get this coffee here. It's called Say. It's based out of Brooklyn.
Sick.
It's got this dope box. But it's their Buckeye, a anaerobic honey from Burundi. So it's pretty intense, actually.
I've heard of Burundi. They make coffee there.
They do. They grow it. They got a lot of great coffees. Very interesting stuff. I don't know what the
You know
taste.
what?
Oh,
Let me grab the coffee that I've been drinking. I would feel bad if I didn't shout this place out because it's actually like they're very cool. So I'm obviously not drinking this right now, but it was a coffee shop in Ithaca. It's actually a chain. There's a couple of them. It's called Gimme Coffee.
mhm.
They've been around for a minute, but they're great. They do lots of like organic, fair trade, ethically sourced coffees and shit like that. Got this Peru
Nice.
Soul E Cafe. Notes of sweet honeycomb and clementine, vanilla buttercream, caramel drizzle. I'd say so. It's a pretty
Yeah,
light roast.
that's a
Yeah,
classic Peruvian tasting like profile. It sounds so good.
gotcha. Yeah, I mean it's great. Really, I'm a light roast guy typically, so that I've really been enjoying it.
Yeah, the same. I love when they barely just toast the coffee and then you can taste all the crazy like fruity notes, especially when it's like a fermented coffee process and it tastes like Fruit Loops and like Skittles and shit like that. I like that. Um,
Yeah,
this one was almost green when I poured it out of the bag. Like it was so light. I loved it. I was
that's
like
great.
a little boy, so giddy about it. So
I love when coffee makes me feel like a little boy.
I know it's far and few between those experiences, but
It's very true. I don't know if I've ever drank coffee, or at least, knowing it, that was so lightly roasted that it was still kind of green. That sounds great.
yeah, I mean, there's a few, and especially in like these African coffees that do weird processing, they tend to keep it on the very, very light side, but it all depends on the roaster. Like,
Yeah.
I know Rochester's got some cool, like around upstate New York, there's some cool stuff in those like college towns. Like you talked about Ithaca. Ithaca's like a little college blip, I guess.
Yeah.
Buffalo's got some cool stuff. I can't remember the name of the roaster right now, but the bassist from that band, Spaced,
Mhm.
he works at shout out John. He's a manager for a cool like coffee roaster around the Buffalo area, and they've got some good stuff he sent me.
Nice. Yeah, I mean there's a couple. There's Ugly Duck, which
Oh,
that's a Joe, aforementioned Joe, he from my old band, he works there. You got Fuego Coffee Roasters, Joe Bean Coffee Roasters.
mhm.
Um, there's a couple other ones that I'm forgetting right now, of course, but I think those three are like the big ones. Yeah, and then but I moved out to a very small town in central New York pretty recently, so I'm much closer to Ithaca right now. So like Ithaca's great. It's got Gimme. There's a couple Gimme locations. There's a it's not Lamplighter because that's the place in Richmond, but there's a place with a very similar name. It's like Lighthouse or something like that in
Mhm.
Ithaca. It's great. Yeah, so there's really like you said, it's kind of this little blip of like college hipsterdom in the middle of nowhere because around me, like where I live, it's I hesitate to say desolate, but it's it's lots of Trump flags and
Oh
various
man,
pieces of bullshit like that. But I mean, you drive 20-30 minutes and you're in Ithaca, and it's just like nothing but breweries and coffee roasters and vegan panini shops, and it's
nice.
great. I love it.
You get the two cultures colliding. Just there's like this weird safe zone, and then all around, you get to experience what the rest of America sees. It's
It's
crazy.
kind of like when you're driving into like Austin, Texas, and you're 40 minutes outside the city, and it's like investigate, the Quran, and you're like, all right, and then you get into the city, and it's nothing but I don't know, like vegan hero shops.
like
It's cool.
like Tex-Mex and heroes and barbecue, but like
Yeah.
some kind of weird hipster barbecue.
It's some place called like Ethical Beef. You're like, cool.
I have no idea what that means, but we'll try it. I'll try anything once.
Every
Uh,
restaurant is called like Beef Plus Fire, or like
yeah,
the
it's
Steak
like something
Factory.
plus like, oh, let's go grab a coffee. Coffee plus milk. But they don't have any dairy options. It's all like plant-based milks.
There was a place in Montreal actually that we went to when we were there, playing a show, that it was a pizza place that had like the funniest name. I think it was called like Cheese Plus Slice. It's
Slice
like,
plus soda.
that's it. Yeah, slice plus soda. It's like, yeah,
Slice
that's
and
what I'm
soda.
looking for.
But none of the soda, they don't have actual sodas. It's like homemade
It's
in
homemade.
store sodas.
It was so good. I went back like twice. Yeah, like and it was so expensive. I mean, shout out to Slice and Soda. Like
It's
it's worth it,
expensive.
but it is expensive. But I thought it was worth it. The big ass slices. It was actually really good. Homemade soda. That's like that's cute. I like that. It was like a lavender soda. It was
Yeah.
great. I
It's the
went
most
back. I told
Montreal bullshit ever.
it really is. But I was so like charmed by it. I went back. I told the rest of my band about it. I was like, we gotta go to Slice and Soda. It was great.
That's when last time y'all were here, y'all played Corona, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, with it was the Brutal show with Vox and Hops.
So we had to drop that one because I had like some very bad and urgent teeth issues that I had to get taken care of.
Okay.
But we did play Corona a couple of months prior on the Dying Fetus tour that
That's
we were
right.
on.
Okay, that lineup was fucking awesome. Just that weird cross section of deathcore and death metal, and then Dying Fetus, which is all encompassing.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was a fun tour, man. And shout out to the Frozen Soul people. Those guys are cool as fuck. And Chad, the singer, shout out to Chad specifically. He's the man. And I remember he said something on stage at that Montreal show that I thought was so funny. He was like doing a mosh call, and he went, "For Canada."
yeah. It's funny, like those shows always crack me the fuck up because like I'm a hardcore, like I come from the hardcore scene, which I'm sure like I know Chad does. I believe that you have hardcore roots.
For sure.
And yeah, so like a lot of these bands that like go on tour like Dying Fetus, the Black Dahlia tour coming up with Frozen Soul and Fuming Mouth. Fuming Mouth's another one that they're basically hardcore dudes that play like death metal.
Yeah, and like
And
Terror's on that tour.
Terror's also on that tour, so that should say something.
Yeah.
But like it's funny to see the fans that go to the front for certain bands. Like so like for Frozen Soul, there's all these like, death metal fans for Dying Fetus. And then there's all the hardcore scene that's been listening to Frozen Soul doing push-ups in the pit because Chad told them to do it. They're like 20 push-ups in the pit. Where my hardcore bros at?
I just thought it was funny that he was like, for Canada, just because like imagine you're playing a show in, I don't know, fucking like anywhere in the US, and you're like, for America.
For America.
That's like, that
Biggest
is
fucking country.
that is hard as fuck. Just shouting out a country as a mosh call.
Did y'all play Toronto on that tour too?
Yeah, we played Oh man, what is the name of that place? The Opera House. It was like
Okay,
the
yeah.
next day.
That's so
And
funny
then
that he chose Montreal,
right.
like one of the least Canada identifying cities. For
I
Canada.
think some people were mad about it. I think somebody went up to, it's like some wasted dude at the show, at the Montreal show, who like thought that Tommy, our bass player, was in Frozen Soul. He
Mhm.
like came up to Tommy at the merch table and he was like, I'm not gonna do a fresh Canadian accent because that would be insulting. But
Yeah.
he was like, hey man, just so you know, Montreal, not Canada, it's Quebec. And Tommy was like, what did I do? Like, I didn't say anything.
So this is, I know Chad didn't mean to do that by any means, but there is this like long ass, like 100-year debate on like Quebec wanting to separate from Canada and
Sure.
be its own country because it's French speaking. So he got caught in the crossfire on that one because there's like this big sentiment of Montreal being its own kind of city state because of how diverse it is. And once you get outside the city, it's mostly like French speaking and like adamantly no English. Like
Yeah.
I've so it's just very funny that he chose Montreal and then like immediately gets clapped back on it.
Yeah, I mean that's real as fuck. Like I remember on that tour, the day before Montreal, we had played Quebec City,
Oh
and
yeah.
I didn't really know what to expect, but I just kind of, I mean, I'd been to Montreal once when I was a kid, so I knew that it's French speaking, but it's also like what's the right term? It's also like cosmopolitan enough that
Mm-hmm.
you can speak English and no one's really gonna bat an eye. But when we got to Quebec City, it was like crazy because we had this overnight drive. I think it was from like Detroit all the way to Quebec City. Um, and we got there, we slept in the van on like some very public street, woke up, got out of the van, and it was like we were in a different country. Because
Mm-hmm.
like, all the street signs are in French, all the shop names are French, everybody's speaking French. And I had never experienced anything like that. I think it's like the closest that you can get in my experience in North America to being overseas, really.
Yeah.
And that was just a crazy experience. But then, yeah, coming back down to Montreal, it's like, it feels more like you're just in a major city where some people happen to speak French.
That's what I love about it is like there's so many different cultures that have over, the 375 years to create Montreal. Like there's a lot of like Scottish, Irish, English heritage, Russian, Moroccan, French, obviously. So like every kind of neighborhood has its own like culture that built it. So
Mm-hmm.
no matter where you go, there's always like some kind of cool like vibe throughout the city. Each kind of neighborhood has its own thing. It's really cool.
Yeah.
That's what I like about it. It's like a
Yeah.
mini New York. New York's too big.
Yeah, it definitely is. It feels New York-ish in certain ways, definitely in terms of how expensive everything is. But um, it's cool. We've only played there once. I look forward to going back.
Mhm.
I think it's just a cool place.
Yeah. Next time, if you want pizza, I'll have to take you to a no slice and soda. I'm not trying to clown on them. They have their place. But there's a much better one, in like a different neighborhood, but it's phenomenal. Like,
Better than slice plus soda.
I mean, like I said, I'm not trying to clown on anybody. I will just say that's not the best slice or the best soda in Montreal.
I find that hard to believe. It's
Let
in
me
the
change your
name.
mind. Pizza Tony, man. Pizza Tony's the
Please.
spot. It's the
Oh
spot.
man, okay. That sounds wonderful.
Crust so crispy, but airy. Oh, it's beautiful. Anyway, we'll line that up next time you're here.
Hell yeah. That sounds great.
Bring you a giant ass pie. That's awesome. Y'all went to the UK like 2 months ago, last month,
Yeah.
January, February, right?
Yep. It was back in January. It was great.
Aside from basically every show selling out, was there like a memorable experience being there? I guess post pandemic that you've like food wise that was just really weird or good. Like what's the craziest thing that happened while y'all were over there?
Oh man. I mean, uh definitely like a couple really good food experiences, a couple really bad ones too. I mean, that's life. But not to get too wistful about it, but um, I guess we'll start with the good. We're big fast food heads in
Okay.
Undeath. I mean, we enjoy our nice meals. We enjoy our expensive dinners, like for sure. But uh, we're a McDonald's band through and through. There's no denying it. And one thing that all of us were very much looking forward to about going overseas for the first time was trying, British McDonald's and just seeing what the difference was. Turns out it's great. They offer a curry sauce that you
Yes.
can dip stuff into. Amazing.
Fire.
Um, they have various other. Oh, they still have chicken selects over there, which is great. So yeah, British McDonald's, big highlight. I'm not gonna insult the United Kingdom by saying that was the only good thing that we ate over there. It's not true. Um, had lots of great like Mediterranean food, lots of great
Mhm.
Middle Eastern food. In London especially, we went to a really, really good like shawarma kebab place. Um, Forget what it was called. I feel bad, but it was awesome. It was right by the Black Heart in Camden, and that
Mm.
place was great. Um,
The Black Heart
you know,
also goated.
thick
It's one of the
venue,
one of huh?
thick place,
Thick?
thick, SICK.
I was like, I thought you said dick venue at first. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, there's beef. No, very cool place.
Yeah, it's
We had
great.
a great time. Very friendly staff. Um, yeah, I mean we had tons of good food, but food experiences. Bad. I mean that's like the funnier stuff. I mean I remember specifically we played a show in Newcastle that was really really good. It sold out, and then afterwards we stayed. I think we drove overnight to Manchester. I mean, overnight it's like 2 hours everywhere in every city is like 2 hours from each other. But um, drove to Manchester or maybe it was after the Manchester show. I can't remember, but stayed at this kid's house and we were asking him what was open. And he said, "Oh, there's like this pizza place. Like you can get like pizza and wings and stuff, and they're open until like 4 a.m." So we ordered that, and I remember what I ordered was, I'll send you the picture. It was like mixed chicken wings was what it was called on the DoorDash menu. And I was like, "Sounds great." Shows up, it's a big ass piece of like pita bread, and it came in a pizza box. And when you opened it up, on top of the bread was just like this pile of various gray meats. And it was like, ribbons of pork and indistinguishable like chops, just like blobs of brown meatballs. Like it looked like a practical effect from The Thing. It was terrifying. And we were like daring each other to eat it and shit, but we were like so hammered that we ended up eating most of it. Like it was so gross. So that was like the I think the most disgusting and outlandish thing that we ate. But yeah, it was just a lot of fast food mostly.
Oh my God. That's great. Well, hopefully that will forever live in your memory as the worst food experience in England and it won't be topped.
I hope so. I mean, it's already been topped, but I mean, when we were in Australia, very recently, the promoters they bought all the bands in the green room like a bunch of pizzas and stuff, and uh, I mean, the promoters were great. Shout out to them, but it was a very funny situation because in our green room, excuse me, it was us stabbing from Texas and the Gatecreeper from Arizona
Mhm.
and Obscura from Germany.
Nice.
And but Obscura, I believe, has American members in the band, so it's like four mostly American bands. And the promoter comes in, we've been there all day, like none of us have really eaten. There's not a lot by the venue, and he's like, I got like 8 pizzas on the way right now, and we're all like in tears. We're like, we can't wait to eat some fucking pizza. Shows up, I like go and take a shower, come back, the pizzas are there, and everybody is kind of just like sitting around the table looking a little disappointed, and I'm like, oh no, what's wrong with these things? Open up the first box. There's fucking shrimp on it, dude. It was a shrimp and ham pizza. It was
All of them?
disgusting. No, so it was like two of them were like shrimp, ham, and pineapple. One of them had, it was like olives, mushrooms. It was like thick green olives, mushrooms, and like something else that was like a very polarizing taste. And there were like two of those. There was one that had like, it was like so spicy that like nobody could eat it. And there was one that was just like a meat lover's pizza, and that thing was gone in like 3 seconds.
Immediately.
Yeah. But we were like, bro, like shrimp and pineapple? Like, what is this?
It's already a travesty with the pineapple. Like, wherever you sit on that fence, whatever side you sit. But adding shrimp to the mix, that ain't right.
We were like, I think a lot of us were just like saddened by it. We're just like, bro, like it was like The Godfather, like, look how they massacred my boy. We were just like, who would do this to a pizza? This is so cruel.
You've both wronged us and pizza as a whole. Think of what you've done. Yeah, I think Obscura, because doesn't David Dipole play? He's the drummer, right?
Yep.
He's a fucking monster.
Oh yeah, I mean those guys are so fucking good at their instruments. It's crazy.
I hate watching bands like that play. I'm like, I just don't want to play anymore. Like, I don't even want to be a musician.
The dude from the singer, the guitar player, he's like the main guy. I forget his name. No disrespect, but his guitar even is crazy. It looks like a Halo weapon. Like it's just this big red pointy thing. Like, dude, we were watching them like warm up and shit. We were like, bro, this is crazy. Like it just made us feel stupid.
Like, why am I even playing on this show? I hate this so much.
And we tour with, this isn't me trying to like gas up or anything, but I mean, like UNDEATH is a very riffy band.
Mm-hmm.
And we tour with a lot of death metal bands that are definitely leaning more in like the breakdown heavy side of things. So, we've heard it countless times, like guitar players and other bands will be watching Kyle or Jared warm up and they're like, whoa, like your shit it's complicated. Like, I don't think I could ever fill in your band. But then we turn around and we watch Obscura play and we're like, it's like, there's no way any of us could attempt to play any of what you're playing right now.
That's I do, because UNDEATH is definitely like a shreddy band when it comes to like that modern old school death metal resurgence. I would say that you guys lean definitely more towards the like riffy, shreddy. Y'all have solos. Y'all have dueling solos. That's like a defining characteristic in this climate of death metal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely see that as being on the more complicated. Y'all don't just play in 4/4. Y'all play in like opposing polyrhythmic stuff sometimes, which is cool.
We can't help it, dude. We love like Spawn of Possession and Necrophagus and shit like that. That stuff seeps into our music.
Yeah, there's so much of that in there. So yeah, I definitely see that as being more complicated caveman metal. But like, so that's pretty funny that there's like this weird step from like no disrespect to like Gate Creeper, but I think they're probably the bar setter for that style of death metal. And then there's complicated stuff like UNDEATH, and then there's like Obscura all the way up here.
Yeah, it's like we're more like caveman in attitude than anything. I feel like musically it's not really like musically it definitely gets a little nutty and complex, but like the vibe, it's like caveman and vibe. It's like that we try to bring a kind of a brain dead like party atmosphere to our sets, but the music is still very complicated.
Yeah, even lyrically, I think that it is very related to like slam, like a 200 stab wounds-esque kind of gory,
sure,
attitude. But musically, yeah, it's definitely complex at its core. Which is great.
we are like uh we're singing the classics of death metal. You know,
Yeah.
it's like there's no space stuff. It's all gore and torture 100% of the time.
There's nothing emotional about it. Okay. It's just, we want to chop your head off.
It's just like, what is more death metal than every single song being about killing people? I mean, bro, on this last, we were joking about it, like on the set that we just did on the Dire's Murder tour, we were playing 7 songs and 3 of them had the word grave in the title.
It's a bit gratuitous. No, no.
Yeah, we were like, maybe we should step away from the word grave for a little while, like before people catch on to this.
I even think because it was funny. I was reading like the Pitchfork review of "It's Time to Rise from the Grave," and it's an 8.3, which is like crazy to think that like Pitchfork would give a death metal band in general an 8.3. But so that's really cool. And they're like, I'm reading this review, beautifully written, and they're like, the second of 2 songs on the album about raising a zombie army and amassing it. I'm like, how many songs do you need about that on an album? It's so funny.
Well, you know what's funny is I know what 2 songs you're talking about, and they originally, when we were writing them, we were going to have a parenthetical at the end of both songs, so it's going to be like Necrobionics parentheses the Necrobionics Suite Part 1, and then Enhancing the Dead was going to be the Necrobionics Suite Part 2. And that was the thing, even for us, when we're a band that like revels in excesses like that, we had to step back and be like, this is too much.
There's a line.
Like, this is becoming parody at this point. We can't do this.
That's great. I love watching you guys, like y'all's sets online are really, really great. There's always that party attitude like you're talking about. Even seeing you guys open that Frozen Soul show, like the energy off the bat is like super high. You're a very moshy person, which is great because I love moshing. And so seeing somebody that's not just standing still with a mic stand, grunting into it in a death metal band is very refreshing.
Thanks.
Playing shows like LDB, and I think the first set I saw you guys was after the pandemic was lightening up in the States. There was that Rochester skate park show, which was like the first thing I ever saw from y'all. And I was like, this is cool. It's a death metal band playing in what a hardcore band would be playing. And I believe like the other bands on that show were pretty much hardcore bands from that area. So what is that like? What kind of reception is it playing a very mosh heavy thing like LDB as opposed to playing with like Dying Fetus or what was the Obscura show? I mean, that's a pretty metal forward bill.
Yeah, you know, I that's a good question. And I think we, at this point at least, like now we have the vibe that we want to bring and like the atmosphere that we want to create at every one of our sets dialed in enough that we just kind of feel comfortable playing anywhere, because regardless, we're just going to be doing our thing. But I think back in the day, like when we were first starting and first playing shows, like the skate park show that you mentioned in Syracuse, that was like that was the first show that we played coming back from COVID. Right. So, and before that, like COVID lockdown, and before that, you know, we'd only really played like a dozen or so shows, and we hadn't really like gone out and toured at all. That was right before the Black Dahlia Murder tour that we did. So we were still like a very, very green band in terms of playing live. So I think we were just trying to like find our identity a little bit. But ultimately what it comes down to is like, we know that regardless of who we're playing with, whether it's a strictly death metal show, a strictly metal show, or it's, you know, 8 or 9 metal bands in a row, or like a fest type deal, whether it's a hardcore show, we're just gonna do our thing. And sometimes like people are really receptive to it, and sometimes they don't really understand what we're going for, and that's just kind of like the vibe of playing live. That's just what it is. But we're true enough to ourselves and the shit that we want to come across that we feel confident playing to like pretty much any audience at this point. I will say, you know, like when we played LDB, it was a fun set. Like we had a great time, and the people that were receptive to us were definitely very receptive to us. But there was definitely kind of this vibe while we were playing where most people were like, all right, where's the breakdown? Like this fucking 6/8 riff has been going on for too long. Like where's the heavy part? And we definitely kind of felt that. But then the next day we played the LDB after show, which was in a much smaller room, and it was like a much more mixed bill. It wasn't just like 100% hardcore bands. It was some hardcore bands, some metal bands, and that was like definitely felt like a much more receptive crowd for sure. So you really can't tell. You just have to kind of go in and do your thing and just stay true to yourself, and that's what we try to do for sure.
Well, much respect to that. I know that playing hardcore shows, especially like very hyped fests, and I mean that in the most loving way possible, but the hardcore scene does have this air of kind of like the coffee scene. It's very arms crossed. If I don't like it, do something to impress me kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Which no disrespect, I've been there. But playing as a very much more metal band to an arms crossed horseshoe can be not fun. So to see you guys go up and do your thing on that video, and there's quite a few people screaming at you, getting their mosh on, jumping off the stage. I love the mosh call you said at the beginning where it was like, if you've got a head attached to your shoulders, you better bang that shit. If you've got feet attached to your legs, you better throw your dumb ass off the stage. Hilarious. So yeah,
like not to sound too arrogant about it, but the vibe I was kind of going into that set was like, there's so many people, and I say this lovingly. I say this as a person who came up in hardcore, but so many kids at that fest, like very stylized, very aesthetic, like wearing vintage Cannibal Corpse, vintage Obituary, vintage Morbid Angel shirts, and I was kind of thinking like, all right, we'll see.
Real recognize real. Let's make it real right now.
We're about to jump up on the stage and play some real ass motherfucking death metal for you. Like, we'll see.
Yo, show me the breakdowns in Morbid Angel, and we'll get to scuffling. Like
that was kind of my mindset going into it, and I know that's a very antagonistic mindset, but I was like, my culture is not a costume.
Somebody had to say it.
I'm just kidding.
No. All jokes aside, listen, no. If you're gonna represent, and then a modern representation of what you claim to be about is on stage, be real about it, or give the shirt up.
That's real. I agree.
Name three obituary songs. How about that?
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. No. And one of them
chopped in half,
or Redneck Stomp. That leaves me out. I can't even pretend to know that I know those songs.
You know what? I'll say this too, though. We played the Rumble in Chicago. That's like another very beat down heavy hardcore fest.
Yeah,
and we had a fucking great time. That was an awesome show, and that was I was kind of very nervous going into it because I don't say this to make it seem like our LDB set was not enjoyable. I had a great time. I think things went pretty much as well as they could have given the environment that we were walking into. But I was way more nervous for the Rumble, having experienced LDB before, because I was like, well, this fest is 100% tough guy bands, and we're gonna stick out like a fucking sore thumb. We might get our asses kicked playing this thing.
Oh man!
But it was great. We walked on stage and we started playing, and it was all the patch vest, long hair, metal heshers just kind of appeared from the ether and all just gathered around the front of the stage. And I was like, oh, there you guys are. You've been
brothers. Join me.
And I always try to we always joke about what an Undeath fan looks like, and I can't discern it these days at all. It really just depends on the tour, I guess. we did the co-headliner with 200 Stab Wounds, and like
Mm-hmm.
it was skewed very young. Like the front rows at all those shows were like very young people, mix of hardcore kids and metal guys. Like it was cool. It's a very diverse crowd. But then we go on and we do the shows with Die Artist Murder, and the people who came out to those shows who were there to see us were like a little bit older, kind of like
Mm-hmm.
heard us on the radio, like Sirius XM kind of
Yeah.
vibes, like and that was cool. Like those are definitely like the hell yeah brothers, you know. But it's cool. Like I don't think I know what the average Undeath listener looks like these days, and I'm very happy with that. I think it means
Mm-hmm.
that we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a when you can't just lock down that demographic, I think that means that you're heading in a good direction.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
I
that's
think
good.
so.
Decibel Metal and Beer Fest. You guys have that coming up.
Yep.
Tell me about this beer, The Rise from the Grave.
Hell yeah, it's a Maibach lager. Don't ask me to tell you what that means since I don't know. But basically, what we wanted to do was there's a brewery in Rochester called Genesee, and they brew pretty standard, lagers and ales, very cheap. Excuse me, but they do a beer every spring called the Springbok, and it's just it's a Maibach. It's a dark lager.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got approached by KCBC, which is a very nice brewery out of Brooklyn, to do a collab beer with them for the fest, they asked us, what they wanted to do. They pitched like a New England style hazy IPA because those are very popular right now. And we basically just told them that we wanted to rip off the Genesee Springbok because it's like our favorite springtime Rochester beer, and we wanted to kind of like pay tribute to our hometown. And they were totally down for that idea. And they posted a long description of the beer and like its tasting notes and all that stuff the other day on Instagram, and it sounds incredible. It sounds like they nailed it. It's tapped right now at their brewery, and my brother lives in the area, so he went down and tried it, and he told me it was great. So, and he's a snob when it comes to beer, like big time snob. So, if he was honest with me about that, then that's cool. So I'm really looking forward to trying that.
So I didn't realize that Genesee was in Rochester.
Yeah.
Me and my friends, when we were like in college or around that age, Genesee cream ales were always flowing.
Oh yeah.
Always. It's like $2 for a giant man can of Genesee cream ale.
You get the creamer steamers afterwards. You take those big disgusting beer dumps after you drank like 9 or 11 Jenny cream ales. Terrible.
Dude, so good. I love, we used to try like all the different shit malt liquors at the grocery store, like Mickey's. I actually kind of like Mickey's, but like,
I do too.
Schlitz, Schultz, the high gravity stuff that tastes like corn and pennies. We tried to identify tasting notes. It was always corn and pennies. This one's got more of a copper taste. So
yeah, Jenny's not much better. I mean, I love Jenny. I love Genesee. It's a hometown staple. Nothing but love and respect for that brewery. But man, not very good, is it?
Listen, it's got a special place in my heart. I love a good frothy cream ale. So if I ever found it here in a like a convenience store or something, I'd probably pick one up just for like the sentiment of it. Don't know if I'd drink it though.
You know what? Like I'm not like I joke about Jenny and say that it tastes like shit and stuff, but like I'm allowed to do that because I'm Rochesterian, and like if I was traveling and I was drunk enough and somebody tried to tell me that Jenny was bad, which is, true, but if somebody not from Rochester said that, like those are fighting words. There's a lot of pride in the Genesee brewery.
Say it again to my face. You about to get these hands.
These hands are ready to eat for everyone. And like the local pride with Jenny is crazy. People just have such a devout affection for it. And I remember when Other Half, the very fancy brewery. They're Brooklyn based. They opened a location, like a tap room in, well, like it's in Broomfield, which is like 30 minutes outside of Rochester. It's in the middle of nowhere, but that was a couple of years ago. And when they did that, their big like peace offering, I guess, was that they did a collab beer with Jenny, and they did a like elevated cream ale. So it was like everything about a Jenny cream ale, but it was just a little bit fancier. Mm-hmm. And that was a big deal because Genesee doesn't really do collabs with other breweries. They're not really on that whole wave. They kind of just do their own thing. They've got like a, what do you call it? Like a brewmaster series. So they do like fancy beers and stuff that you can get at the brewery and they're a little bit more expensive. They do like seasonal stuff, but it's all kind of self-contained. So for them to kind of extend the olive branch with a new like hipsterish brewery was a big deal. And when that shit dropped at the Jenny brewery, there's a bridge that like, so that the tap house kind of sits right along the falls that go into the Genesee River. And there's this big pedestrian bridge. Couldn't tell you exactly how long it is, but it's long. And it goes all the way across the falls. And it was full of people all day. Because that is how devout the following is for Rochesterians, for Jenny, because people just had to try this fucking beer. And I didn't wait in line because I had work at my old job, but I paid somebody to wait in line for me and pick up a 4-pack of it. And it was great.
That's dope. I love getting behind, like, maybe you have something local that's not the best shit, but it's like, it's yours, you know?
Yeah.
I love that. I know that you guys have the fest coming up in Philly. There's also the Baltimore Death Fest that y'all are playing this year.
Yep.
Any tours coming up that you can talk about without breaking an NDI of any kind or something?
Yeah, I mean we've got Hell in the Harbor in Baltimore, like you said. We're playing Milwaukee Metal Fest like the next day or the day before. We're playing and then after that, you know, we're going to Europe in June. We're playing a bunch of fests over there. We're doing like Download. We're doing Into the Grave. We're doing Mystic Fest in Poland. Some shows in between that'll get announced pretty soon. Yeah, we're over in Europe for like 3-4 weeks and then come home. And then after that, you know, I think we're going to take the rest of the summer to just kind of like chill and write. You know, we want to kind of finish up the next record. And then in the fall, we got some stuff cooking right now that nothing is really set in stone yet, but there's some potential tours out there in the ether that we might be a part of that I'm very excited about. So yeah, we're definitely going to be staying busy for the rest of the year.
Sweet. I'm excited for y'all to hit that tour. I mean, the fest circuit in Europe, because y'all kind of didn't have to do the shit Europe tour thing where you have like a sprinter with no AC, just playing like random fucking squats all through Europe that all these bands are like, they hate it. Y'all just get to skip right to playing like Download.
You know, I mean, we'll see. Maybe next year everybody decides that they don't like death metal anymore, and we're back to Under Oath, and then all of a sudden we're playing the squats.
Post Christ Core.
that's Undeath. We're post Christ Core.
We could get an Undeath, Under Oath. It's all bands with like "un" at the beginning of their name.
Undying.
Yeah.
The band the doom metal band.
Yeah, that doom metal band. You could get what's another one? You could just get Red Hot Chili Peppers playing only Under the Bridge.
Under the Bridge.
Like the entire time.
That's good. I fuck with that.
We're only included for this song.
I'll be Unbands tour. I like that. That's funny.
It's just called the Untour. Are we expecting a record 2024? Is that the goal here?
It's definitely the goal. Yeah. You know, we'll see. We're trying to keep it like a little bit closer to the vest this time around, okay. You know, because I think with the last record, we were out there like, you know, 8 months before it was even recorded, being like, New record on the way soon. We're trying to like not do that this time around. We're trying to just kind of like be a little bit more discreet about it. I mean, I'll tell you, like the record is basically done being written. Like we've probably got like 8 out of 10 or 11 songs pretty much written, and lyrics are done for them. So that's cool. The big thing now is just like tightening it up, making sure that we're all comfortable playing it like as a unit and going in and recording it. So I think right now, the goal, the timeline at least, is have the record kind of like donezo by end of summer, early fall this year, and then go and record it early 2024, try to have it out late 2024. That is a timeline that I would be very excited about, but of course, you know, the unexpected happens all the time, so we'll see. But 2024, definitely the goal right now.
Cool. And you guys are on you're on Maggot Stomp, right?
Prosthetic.
It's Prosthetic, so you are gonna put it out on Prosthetic again?
Yep, we are. Cool. This is our, I believe, our final album with them until further notice.
Okay. I won't make you say if you're changing labels because that might be incriminating.
No, I mean we don't know. That's the thing. Like Prosthetic's been awesome. We love them. This is just like the last album in our deal with them. So
commitment.
We'll see. Yeah. We'll see. But cool. Yeah, they've been amazing so far, and I'm stoked to do another record with them. Excited
to see some new songs. But I will say it's time to Rise from the Grave is a great like representation of modern death metal, I think. Not to say like I think a lot of people are like, it has all the stuff that's been done, like the Pitchfork and some of them. It was like, it's good because it's not just like, you know, sludgy breakdowns. There's a lot of technical shit in there. You know, it's fun. It's fun to listen to. So if people listening, if you haven't listened, go check out It's Time. It's time for you to listen to It's Time to Rise from the Grave. Available on all streaming platforms. Well, Alex, this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed us hanging out, chilling, talking food and cream ales. Vibing. Cream ale forever. I got one last question for you before we go.
Yeah.
What's your favorite city for beans and breakdowns?
Oh, that's good. Beans is easy. Beans and breakdowns is hard. You know, this is great radio right now. Just me thinking.
Making thinking noises. You
know, I'm gonna go Melbourne, Australia, because it's very recent in my memory, obviously, because I was just there. But they have really, really wonderful coffee there. I had no idea going into visiting the city that it was such a vibrant coffee scene down there. But, you know, even if they haven't quite comprehended, you know, iced coffee or cold brew, they do everything else pretty great. Probably some of the best espresso I've ever had was in the day and a half that we were in Melbourne. Looking forward to hopefully spending more time there. And then in breakdowns, you know, there's just tons of incredible metal bands from Melbourne. Like Faceless Burial comes to mind immediately. Gutless. Gutless is a band that has just like agonizingly heavy breakdowns. I'm gonna go Melbourne, Australia.
Nice. A lot of people I don't think know that Australia's got this crazy long-standing coffee culture that predates like the US like modern boom. Australia was doing it like 10 years or more before.
I had no idea.
So it's cool. It's cool that Melbourne's on the list. It hasn't been said on the podcast yet, so you're the first.
Hell yeah. Right. Shout out to Melbourne.
Shout out Melbourne. They say Melbourne, right?
Melbourne.
Yeah. Australia's been on my map too, because I don't know if you know that band Speed.
Yeah.
I want to go to Australia just to see Speed play because it looks crazy.
Yeah, Speed is dope. They're from Sydney. We didn't get to go to Sydney this time around, but yeah, I'm hoping to next time because it looks amazing, and I want to see that fucking opera house.
The Opera House on the bridge.
Yeah,
You gotta see it.
yeah, but Speed is dope. Shout out to Speed. That man's cool.
Shout out Speed for being just the greatest representation of Australian hardcore right now.
I can't think of another one.
There's another band called AWOL that's kind of big. I actually think AWOL's from Melbourne.
Okay, word, cool.
Because they do like little short Australian runs together, play 5 cities or whatever, all the cities in Australia.
Yeah, it's like you can drive up and down the East Coast, play like those 5 cities, and then you fly all the way to the other end of the country and play
Perth. Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, awesome. We'll be looking for some new music, maybe 2024, but for 2023, we'll keep spinning the LP. It's time. I love the 3 dots. Gives you a little.
Somehow we got a top after the next record title. That's definitely. I don't know how we're gonna do that.
More dots.
Yeah, just do 8 dots.
8 periods. It's been ... Yeah, there you go. Well, Alex, thanks so much for hanging out. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday, your long weekend.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was fun. And yeah, same to you.
Take care. Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I want to say a huge thanks to Alex for hanging out on the podcast. Be sure to go check out It's Time to Rise from the Grave, available on all streaming platforms. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. You can find out more information about the podcast by following us on Instagram at Beans and Breakdowns or on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. Until next week, be sure to stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.